like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning, like the circles that you find in the windmills of your mind.
Visit StogieGeeks.com/Debonaire for a list of retailers who carry Debonaire cigars. Buy some today and get a little more Debonaire. Hello. Hey, there I am. Welcome back, everyone, to the Stogie Geek Show. We're going to do our Debonaire Ideal segment. Mike Bellotti, Mr. Stogie Sanders here in studio. Will Cooper is still on the lines via Skype. Excuse me. And we're going to talk about the Debonaire logo being on the television behind me.
Oh, wow.
And then we're going to talk about our favorite scenes in movies or TV where the character is smoking a cigar.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you put together a formal list or if you want to alternate, and then Mike and Mark will let them chime in as well. I have a list of 5. I came up with 5.
I have 5 as well. I did 5 as well.
Okay. So I'll talk about my I'll start at the bottom because I think my number 1 really is kind of my number 1. But Cosmo Kramer. Now, someone told me there are a lot of scenes in Seinfeld where Kramer smokes cigars.
Right.
But one of the funniest episodes is where he brings in these Cuban rollers to like roll Cuban cigars, and there's a lot of funny scenes. I got some links to that from my list that I'll link to. And someone told me about that recently. I got to go back and watch some of the previous episodes. But Cosmo Kramer, when he talks about cigars, man, there are some funny scenes with Cosmo and cigars. So he's calling up Jerry going, you need to bring back some Cubans. He's like, did you get the Cubans? And there's like 3 Cuban guys like sleeping. It's pretty funny.
It is.
That is good.
That was a good one.
So what's on your list, Will?
So what I did is I picked some characters and tried to relate them to some scenes. It may not be a specific scene, but more of the scenario, I'll say. I'm going to start off with a guy who, he was just synonymous with a cigar when I watched the show, and that was George Peppard from the A-Team.
Yes.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
And what I loved is, and I loved watching the opening credits, he had a big smile on his face. He'd have that cigar, and he was like, he wasn't just smoking, he was chomping on that cigar. And he'd be in these most ridiculous costumes, but he was always happy smoking a cigar. And it was like, I just loved, I know people watch that show for Mr. T, but I became one who watched it for George Peppard. I wasn't even a cigar smoker back then, and I like that.
That is a classic cigar smoking character, for sure.
Yep.
Next one on my list is, of course, Tony Soprano. I can't even pick a scene. If I had to pick a scene, one of the ones that I can remember vividly is when, I don't know if it was when his horse died or his horse was sick, and he's sitting in the horse stable.
Yeah.
And he pulls out a cigar and he lights up a cigar. Like there's just so many like
Pile
pivotal moments in that show where he can be seen having a cigar. Like the other one towards the end where he's sitting in the backyard with a rifle, having a cigar. It's just an unbelievable scene. Not to mention that James Gandolfini was like an extremely talented actor too.
Yeah, he was. I think is underrated. I
think so too. Yeah,
I think he started to get a lot more due though as the Sopranos series
progressed.
Because he is a great actor. He's been, and then afterwards you see him in some movies you didn't realize he was even in.
Exactly.
And you say, wow, he's really good in that movie.
Yeah. And then the scene doesn't have a cigar. I was searching for Soprano scenes to pin it down to, and I'm like, I just can't pick one. And then I found one where early on in the series, he finds out that the rat is Jimmy. Yeah. He's going, it's effing Jimmy. And then, like, the YouTube comments were like, watch how he goes from angry to sad to apologetic. Like, watch all of his emotions in that scene. And it's just really amazing to
he had several scenes like that, too.
Yes.
It's amazing. Every Italian mob story, there was always a Fredo.
Yes.
Always Fredo. Always a Fredo.
You know what my friend told me? He's like, everyone's got a Fredo in your life.
Oh, yeah. It's the truth.
And everyone kind of thinks about it, like, oh, shit.
The key is figuring out who it is early.
That's right. Will, what you got on your list?
So I had Tony Soprano, James Gandolfini as well, and the thing, I have a couple of other takes on that. So I loved, like, basically he'd be with his guma, and then after he'd be lying in the bed, just
Having
lay
a
down.
cigar. Yes.
Or having a friggin' cigar laying down in
With
bed.
Marissa
while,
Tomei next to him.
Yeah, right. He copied that from me.
Right. But when he's driving out of the Lincoln Tunnel in that SUV.
Yes.
The beginning of the show.
Wait, and that iconic, you go across what's called the Helix, where you come out of the Lincoln Tunnel and it's a big curve, and he's driving around, he's chomping on that cigar, the smoke is billowing all over the place. I do believe, though, that may be a scene that inspired a lot of people for Big Ring Gauge cigars, because he smoked big.
Oh, there's no
He
doubt
did.
about that.
Yeah.
I
He
agree with
smoked
that.
Lanceros. I mean,
No,
he smoked
no,
Lanceros. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Will. He did smoke larger cigars. I got the scene from Scarface.
You can pick
Yeah,
several.
I mean,
Scarface.
that was one of mine.
I like the one in the hot tub. And
phenomenal.
where he's like, who do I trust? Me, that
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah,
like that's
phenomenal.
to me, that's one of the scenes in Scarface that really in the hot tub.
That's
And that inspired a lot of people to do cocaine.
It did.
No, okay.
Just classic scene. Did you have that one on your list, Will? Did you have the
I
Scarface?
didn't, and I should have. That is because I saw it on yours. Great one.
It's iconic. What else you got on your list, Will?
All right. So this is a newer show, and I don't know if a lot of people have watched this show, but it's called Hell on Wheels.
Yes.
And it's a show about the Transcontinental Railroad. And one thing is, cigars are just a very, very prominent part of this show. There's Ulysses S. Grant is there, and he it comes out there at one point, and he's smoking cigars. This is like after the Civil War, but before he became president. But the thing that was really cool about it, and the governor of Wyoming was a big cigar smoker, and he's an important character. The guy who runs Central Pacific is a cigar smoker, and you'd see they get cigar shipped. But it was those spaghetti western type cigars they smoke on the show. And there's even a lot of women who smoke cigars on that show. The last episode had some women smoking cigars, which I thought was the local newspaper reporter was.
It was a commodity back then. Were those large? I think back then they were largely American grown and made cigars.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I believe they talked about getting some, I think, from Cuba at one point.
Gotcha.
There was a point where, hey, I just got these
Back to
shipped from
Cuba.
Cuba.
Yeah, I know.
Back
fucking
to Cuba. We said we weren't going to talk about Cuba, Will.
But that was before the embargo. So
Yeah.
But I encourage. I'll tell you what. That show, Hell on Wheels, is probably The Sopranos is my all-time favorite television show. This one is probably the best show to come out since The Sopranos. If you haven't checked it
This is the
out,
last season.
yeah, but they're splitting it. It's going to
Yeah.
come back next year, but it is the last season.
Yeah.
But I think I know how it's going to end, so it makes sense.
Now, as a lot of you know, I'm a big nerd, right? I'm a computer.
that's hard to believe.
I mean, that's like an
Take a look.
understatement, right? Yeah, like I'm a nerd. As a nerd, I'm also a fan of science fiction, television, and movies as well. Kind of a tangent note: I was having dinner in Vegas when I was out there, and sitting next to us at the table was George Takei. Sulu
No kidding.
from the original Star Trek, right? So I went up, introduced myself. There's a
Is he
picture
really
with-
talk in that voice when he's just saying hi to you?
He really does. I really felt like I was talking to Sulu. Yeah, like
That's
it was
awesome.
really
Seriously? Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So my next pick is from the science fiction genre, and not a lot of cigar smoking in science fiction. But if you remember the character Wolverine from the X-Men,
Yeah.
he's a big cigar smoker. And one of my favorite scenes is when Charles Xavier is like scolding him for like, if you ever bring a cigar back in here, he's in the machine where he can control, all the mutants. And he's like, you better not bring a cigar back in here, right? And Wolverine just always had a cigar, and I thought that was pretty cool. So
Awesome.
back to you, Will.
So I picked one of my all-time favorite characters. Again, kind of a scenario type of thing, and that's Oscar Madison, Jack Klugman.
Yeah, that's a
Wow.
great one, yeah.
That's a good one.
I mean, he was sloppy, right? And he had that hat on, that Mets hat on backwards, and he'd be chomping the cigar. And you know what? Felix complained a lot about those cigars. But I'll tell you what, Felix was debonair. You know why? He never told Oscar to go outside with those cigars. He always let Oscar have the cigars.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, so I confident field, but I just loved when Jack Klugman was in that sweatshirt and he'd just be walking around the house, grouchy, smoking the cigar. Epic one in my book.
Probably one of my favorite movies of all time that when I was out in Las Vegas, I actually watched it again because I couldn't sleep. And I was watching this movie, and I always admired the scene. And I'm not sure why it sticks in my mind. The movie's, of course, The Godfather, right? I watched this movie when I was growing up. I mean, my family, every Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, my family would watch this movie. So I've watched this movie hundreds and hundreds of times. But I can still watch it to this day and really appreciate it. But it's a scene in Godfather 1 where all the mafia bosses are brought together in the same room. And it's a classic scene, you know, and Vito Corleone is giving this whole speech and wants to end the mafia war that's been going on. But a lot of the mafia bosses are sitting inside in this room with no ventilation, and they've all got these gigantic, you know, cigars. And to me, that's kind of like one of the coolest scenes. There are a lot of cool scenes in The Godfather, don't get me wrong. But that
epic.
one, that one's like the epic.
Yeah, that's a great scene.
Yeah.
Great movie.
I love the scene where he tells the guy no. My friend brought me through this scene, and he's like, "Paul, you got to watch this scene." He brings up the YouTube clip where Vito Corleone, they're in his olive oil shop, and I forget the name of the character, but says, "Hey, basically, I want you to help me sell drugs, right?" And Vito Corleone, he gets the liquor and he fills up his glass, brushes off his leg, and he sits down and he basically tells him to his face like "F you," but like the way he does it, like he fills his drink first, he brushes the stuff off his leg, like, and the whole thing. So there's like so many aspects of that movie, but a lot more cigar smoking going on in that movie series altogether as well. So, Will, what was on your list?
Archie Bunker.
That was mine.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm surprised no one's mentioned the one I'm thinking of. Maybe I'm just too old.
No, we're missing some big ones,
Yeah,
though.
but-
No, you're
but I'll tell
right.
you what-
You're right.
I'm going to use that move when someone asks me about a Cuban. I just thought of it, too. Just before you're about to murder somebody.
I never
You
thought
gotta
Archie.
pour him a drink and brush the lid off their leg?
No.
Oh.
I don't think Archie was the kind of guy who went to your local brick and mortar. I kind of got the impression he was more of a, you go buy the bundles. Maybe you go in New York, they had the Optimo cigar stores, and he'd pick them up, and he always had some in his drawer. But the scene when he would sit in that chair and he'd start puffing on that cigar, and he'd just start railing on Meathead. To me, I mean, it was his chair, and you know what? Again, Edith let him smoke in the house. Never told him to go outside. I mean, and there's one episode where Archie and Meathead have a bet where he'd give up cigars and he'd give up food, and they had to guess who went longer. Some of the funniest stuff you'll ever see on that show. They don't make shows like that anymore.
It was a funny show.
One of the greatest shows of all time.
It was.
Oh, I totally agree.
You couldn't air it. You couldn't air it today.
No, the
way.
political and social issues they addressed in that show. Oh, yeah, you're right. Today,
It'd be on cable TV.
Yeah, my kids call me Archie Bunker because I have a chair in the house, and I don't smoke in the house because I choose not to, but probably my wife wouldn't let me anyway. But yeah, I have a chair in the house, and then I start basically railing on Obama or something like that and get into trouble that way. So.
Oh, I got a great clip on
Speaking
YouTube.
of Meathead, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll tell you. Go on YouTube and Google Alan West.
yeah, you were telling me
about
that. I gotta do that.
Central Park about Obama, and you would. It's the best thing. It will say everything you want to know Obama in 3 minutes. Well, okay. Anyway, move on to.
So, what do you guys have on your list?
He took my Archie Bunker.
Yeah.
Mine. There's three that I got, and I'll put them in this order. First one, you can't forget George Burns.
No, yeah, it's
Okay,
iconic.
I mean, he didn't smoke a lot that much. I understand that, but my second one was High Plains Drifter with Clint Eastwood.
I was gonna say, Clint Eastwood
Cigar.
was the big one that we were missing.
He had
in a
the
lot of
segundo
movies, yeah.
right there, and before he killed someone, had the cigar in his mouth. The guy, here he goes, puff, spit on the ground and shoot someone. You know, I thought that was great. That to me, the more I think about that, that's a great way to answer about Cubans.
It really did play into his tough guy characters in a lot of his westerns.
Go back to Mike. I'm a basketball guy. I love basketball. Red Auerbach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those to me, this is stick out. I mean, they're not movie characters, but they're characters.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're not in the movies, but
Well, speaking
I
of,
relate to
Jordan
that.
was big. Always just be found with a cigar in his hand.
He would
after
smoke
every-
a cigar on his way to every game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he has been spotted in a couple. I have never seen him directly, but he has been spotted in cigar shops in Charlotte from time to time. And then for the draft, he does the draft from the local arena. There's the one cigar store typically brings him the cigar. He mostly smokes Cubans, but I believe they bring him like Padrones or something for the draft on draft night. to smoke.
That's really cool. Well, that concludes our Debonaire Ideal segment. That was a lot of fun. I like to branch out, do different things.
That was a great segment. That was a lot.
That was really cool. So we're going to take a short break, come back, and talk about our Stogies of the Week. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.